6 months after the allegations first came to light and 1 day before the start of training camp, the Deflategate fight is far from over.
And now Tom Brady and the NFL are headed to court. And today we caught up with Rhode Island's former U.S. attorney for an insider's perspective on how the legal process could play out.
Our in-depth coverage continues live now with Eyewitness News reporter Susan Campbell.
Our legal analyst says there are a lot of procedural things that have to happen first before we get to who's right and who's wrong. As soon as Roger Goodell announced his decision to uphold Tom Brady's 4-game suspension, the NFL filed a case in federal court asking the court to confirm that decision. The NFL Players Association has promised to file its own complaint against the NFL. To break down what all of it means, we went straight to our Eyewitness News legal analyst, Robert Corrente.
If the case stays in New York, which is where the NFL filed, the next procedural hurdle will be the question of whether or not Brady's team is able to get an injunction. He'd have to show that he's probably going to succeed on the merits of the case, and he'd also have to show that if he doesn't get the injunction, he would somehow be irreparably harmed.
Of course, a lot of the buzz today is about Brady's cell phone. The NFL commissioner has implied Brady destroyed the phone to get rid of evidence, but Brady claims he simply got rid of it because it broke. We asked Corrente if the cell phone issue will even matter in federal court.
He was not under any legal obligation to turn it over. There's no provision in the collective bargaining agreement for that, so it's hard for them to say that he violated any kind of an order, even though it might not be critically important in court. In the court of public opinion, the timing of it doesn't look so good for Mr. Brady.
Corrente tells me we could know more about a possible injunction against the suspension within the next couple weeks. But coming up new at 6, he explains why an injunction may actually hurt Brady. In the control room, Susan Campbell, Eyewitness News.
And our in-depth coverage continues now. As we told you yesterday, the Players Union is going to take the league to federal court on Brady's behalf.
And new at 6, our legal analyst takes a closer look at why one legal move could hurt the quarterback if he loses. Eyewitness News reporter Susan Campbell joins us now live.
If Brady gets an injunction against the suspension, he could be allowed to play. But if he loses the case, our Eyewitness News legal analyst says it could hurt his game. Tom Brady's suspension may have been upheld, but the fight isn't over. As soon as Roger Goodell announced his decision to uphold Tom Brady's 4-game suspension, the NFL filed a case in federal court in New York, asking the court to confirm that decision.
I think the NFL was also deathly afraid of being caught up in Minnesota because there's a judge out there named Judge Doty who has been the trial judge on a whole host of NFL cases and almost invariably rules against the league, as he did recently in the Adrian Peterson case.
The NFL Players Association has promised to file its own complaint against the NFL, and now speculation is swirling that Brady's attorneys will request an injunction allowing him to play while the case works its way through the court system.
The risk for Brady is if the case then goes forward and he loses on the merits, he could end up having to serve the 4-game suspension in the middle of the season or late in the season, which would arguably be worse than the first 4 games.
Corrente says he would be surprised if this case played out anywhere other than New York, because he says the court where a case is filed first is usually the court that gets to keep the case. Live in the control room, Susan Campbell, Eyewitness News.
And you can count on Eyewitness News for continuing coverage of Tom Brady's Deflategate suspension on air and online.
Go to WPRI.com right now to read the complete statements from Tom Brady, Bob Kraft, and League Commissioner Roger Goodell.